speaker I would like to introduce, Mr. Robert Goris. Robert's from Melbourne, Australia, and after finishing university with a Bachelor in Nursing Science, Rob joined the medical industry, and his career spanned almost 8 years in 3 different countries. Part-time, he was involved in martial arts and self-defense training since the age of 6 years old, and he had aspirations of creating a business that would allow him to devote time to teaching men, women and children realistic tactics and techniques that would improve quality of life. Around 7 years ago, he decided to give up this career in the medical industry and devote full-time to the self-defense programs and Aikido and bully-proof programs that he's offering now in Budapest. These are programs designed for specific areas such as crime prevention, sexual assault prevention, and programs for law enforcement and security personnel. He specializes now in programs for children, including bully-proof prevention and abduction prevention. For the last 2 years, Rob's been a consultant for the United Nations here in Budapest, and has been running workshops for local UN staff and also for UN staff in Kenya, Africa, where he's off to in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Please give a hand to Rob Goris.
Thanks, Peter. I don't need to say anything. You got all the information. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everyone. So, I've been asked to come here today and discuss a little about the bully-proof program that I've introduced here into the international schools, and the different ways we're tackling the issue of bullying. But before I get started on that topic, Peter also asked me just to give a little bit of information about the other things that I'm doing here in Budapest also. Now, like Peter said, I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and have a long, extensive history in self-defense and combat sports and this type of traditional martial arts and these types of activities. But originally, yes, I had a career in the medical industry, and always had the idea that one day I would like to have my own business and devote my time to what I really love, and that's fighting and self-defense and martial arts. So I guess it's been now probably around 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to really devote all of my time on developing these programs that I had. And originally I started to look at what could I do that's better than what's already been going on within the self-defense community. And so I started to look at the traditional martial arts, look at the different programs that were available, and I could see that there was many holes in these programs. So there was, number one, it was taking far too long for someone to learn how to protect themselves. Not everyone has 10, 15, 20 years to devote themselves to a martial art to develop the skills to, of course, protect themselves and their loved ones. So this was number one. And number two, I saw that there was many things that were being taught that weren't applicable to the 21st century, to modern day. So maybe 1,000 years ago it was okay, but now it's not applicable. So I started to research a lot on how I could introduce something new and something that gives the average person with no training whatsoever skills that they can develop very quickly, and also knowledge about different areas where violence occurs. And the first program I created was devoted to tackling the issue of street crime. So looking at criminal violence, looking at the psychology behind violent criminals and how violence occurs, and the different situations that an average person can find themselves in when faced with these criminals. So we developed a program called Street Survival, and it tackles this issue. We have a very large part of the program is devoted to developing awareness and knowledge about how to protect yourself and the pre-violence indicators that go on before the attack takes place. And the other aspect is the physical aspect. And we introduced an idea of learning techniques that were natural body movements. There was no real complex motor skills involved. So we tried to keep it very, very simple and give someone the opportunity to defend themselves and, of course, escape. And we tried to keep everything within the legal standards and boundaries of self-defense. So the Street Survival program was born, and not long after that I started to look at women's self-defense programs. And my history in martial arts and self-defense, I experienced lots of different instructors who taught women's self-defense, and the biggest problem that I found what was going on in women's self-defense is they were either teaching a traditional martial art exactly the same as it would be with men and women, just the class was full of women, and they were calling it women's self-defense. And the other one was they were teaching unrealistic things for women, which one of the biggest ones was that I experienced was instructors teaching women to kickbox their attacker. And if you've got a 65 kilo woman and the attacker's 65 kilo, then there's a possibility that they can win. But if we look at the attacker's 120 kilo, then it's completely useless. So I started to develop the idea, which spread through every single program that I've created. How can the little guy overcome the big bad monster, basically? And so we developed a program on sexual assault prevention, and we looked heavily on how to the psychology of sexual predators, the grooming process that's involved, the difference between stranger and non-stranger sexual predators, because the difference is very different. And we created a program where we looked at we looked at the tactical side of how to survive this, but also from a technical aspect, how can a woman protect herself and escape against someone who's twice the size of her. And we looked at different ideas based on leverage and control, and we looked at all scenarios. This was researched. I put a lot of research into this. I was lucky enough to have access to people with statistics, actual statistics on sexual assault, and we looked at the most common attacks from standing and when the situation is on the ground. And the program has been a huge success. The two programs, maybe 2.5 years ago, were taken on by the United Nations. We have one of the departments here in Budapest, and they asked me to create short versions of my programs for staff here in Budapest. It's been a huge success. I'm still running programs now here in Budapest. We have programs running every year for UN staff. And the Street Survival program was seen to be a large success here, that they decided that they were going to create an online certified version of this course so UN staff could log into a secure site anywhere around the world and take this course. And we have a small advert that we made for this program, so we're going to just play this just so you can have an idea of what we created. so you could sort of get the idea from the jumpy picture there. We filmed this in Budapest. It was a week of filming. It was a lot of fun, especially doing we recorded realistic life scenario scenes, so in different areas around Budapest, within bars. We picked a few street locations and out in the forest as well. So it was a lot of fun. And this program now is online for UN staff to, like I said, to become certified anywhere around the world. The two programs were seen. It was seen afterwards that there was a need for these programs elsewhere, and with a huge population of UN and NGO staff in Kenya, Africa, it was decided that we would introduce the programs there. And last year I was on mission for 2 months in Kenya, and I was working with staff in Nairobi and where the two refugee camps are located in Kakuma and Dadaab. And also at that time I was asked to create a new program for staff interviewing refugees. So there was an increase in violent attacks on these staff members due to the hostile situation that was going on, that is still going on. And so they asked me to create a program where someone in this tiny room, the interview rooms are small, they're really small, with a desk and 2 chairs. We were asked to design a program for these staff members, how they could defend themselves from a seated position behind a desk and quickly get outside the room to alert security. So we created this program. It was introduced in Dadaab, where the largest refugee camp in the world is. And this experience for me was a life-changing experience. The training, okay, that was fantastic, that was great, but to actually experience what was going on within these refugee camps, I came back, I think, a different person than when I left. To see the crime and the violence that goes on inside these mini cities, basically that's what they are, it's just horrendous. And to see how, one thing that stands out in my mind was at another refugee camp in Kakuma, where I was able to get out and play football with some kids. And these kids, I mean, they had nothing. If you think, their clothes are ripped, the toes are poking out the end of their shoes. They had a homemade football, which someone had made for them. So they didn't actually have a football, they had a homemade, it was woven like basket weaving or something like that. And I got out of the vehicle and started playing football with these guys. And it was the most humbling experience I think I've ever had. You've got six to 8-year-old kids, maybe 10 or 12 of them, the biggest smiles on their face and completely overwhelmed with bliss. These kids were so happy, laughing, carrying on, having fun. It was just an incredible experience. And it's technology and how children are brought up today, it's created this living in the moment and actually just being happy out in nature, whatever it might be. Kids are missing that now. And that was something that really changed my mind about many aspects of life when I came back. So getting back on track, the programs were very successful. I was introduced to a new project, which is a huge project that's going on with the UN on residential security. And we started that last year. And basically this project is ongoing, and I'm back there in a couple of weeks to continue working on this. But I have another clip, but if it's not going to play, it's probably not worth watching. This is something that we filmed. This is an intro to an online program that we filmed last year in Kenya on improving security of residents' homes.
critical element in your safety and security for many reasons. Think about it. Most people are at home for upwards of 10 hours every day. You expect your house to be safe, so you probably let your guard down when you are there. For around 8 hours each day, most people are in bed asleep, and therefore particularly vulnerable. You rely on your house to shelter your loved ones and keep them safe. You use your house to store all your possessions, even when you are not at home. Home security is just another thing that we can keep putting off, as it will never happen to me. But one day it might, so it's always worth investing time into thinking about what can keep you. Your home should be a place where you and your family feel safe. It is essential that you maintain the balance between a peaceful life and security. Despite all precautions, you could still become the victim of a crime at some point. You've got a life to live. Don't let fear prevent you from enjoying your life. However, there is no ignoring the fact that all homes are vulnerable to risks of theft and robbery. It is therefore essential that you know how to keep your home safe. This way, you will be protecting not only your property, but also the people that are most valuable to you, your family. We will provide you with a few simple ideas which can help to ensure that the level of security on your home is increased. The great thing about these particular ideas are that they are very easy to implement and are not actually going to cost you that much to carry out. However, and this is important, the tips provided in this video may help to try and prevent a break-in from occurring, but they will not actually stop the most determined of burglars from gaining access to your home if they really want to. Don't become obsessed with security. Naturally, you want to take all reasonable measures to protect yourself, your family, and your belongings, but don't turn your house into a prison.
Okay, so that's just an intro on what we created. This was an online learning program as well, and basically it was designed to give staff members basic ideas that they can run their own vulnerability assessments on their home and introduce simple ideas that were not costly, that they could improve the security of their home. Now, what we're doing this time around is where we've introduced new technology in the area of home security, and we're going to launch that in December. And this technology, I'm not really talking about it too much at the moment, but I plan to bring this back to Budapest and create a residential security business here in Budapest for families who are already existing living here, and also for people travelling here, short-term, long-term, whatever it might be. We can run vulnerability assessments on hotels and also homes. So that's something that next year we plan to launch here also. I could keep talking about this for quite some time, but I should get on to the real reason I'm here, bully-proof. Sorry. So I've been asked to talk about bully-proof, the program that I've created for kids, and how that came about was I was teaching traditional martial arts to children and realised that many parents were sending their children to my classes to try and give them confidence and the ability to not be a victim of bullying. But the problem was I was not addressing this issue. I was teaching a traditional martial art. So I was teaching, like everyone teaches these arts, the same exam system, the same techniques, everything. And I started to realise that this, for some children, is great, but for most children, this is not really what they need. So I started to look, okay, what's the biggest problem kids face at school? Bullying. And I looked at when I was a child, the things that were involved in my life, the bullying that I had going on. So I started to think about the advice that I was given from my parents. And well, yes, it was terrible advice, but it was advice nonetheless. And this is where it all started. My father said to me, if someone hits you, you hit them back even harder. Eventually they'll stop. Okay, I started to think, yeah, but this bully's like 10 times the size of me. How can I hit him harder? But anyway, and my mother's advice was, if someone bullies you, if someone teases you, if they don't let you play the game, if they talk behind your back, tell the teacher. The teacher will sort it out for you. And so, thankfully, I didn't really, at a young age, take their advice, because why this is a problem I'll get to, but this was, let's say this was 30 years ago, and 30 years ago, education on bullying was pretty much non-existent. There wasn't too much going on about how children should deal with bullying in their life. So I understand bad advice was given, but surely it wasn't going on now. Surely parents were not giving this same advice to children. And unfortunately, what I was finding out was this was still going on. Parents were giving the same advice. Of course not all parents, but there was a lot of parents giving the same advice. And this was alarming, because if we look at these two pieces of advice, if you hit someone, hit them back harder. The message that this is giving the child is that in some areas of life and in some circumstances, violence is acceptable. And what happens then is this child takes this idea throughout their life that in sometimes I'm allowed to be violent, sometimes it's acceptable. And of course the problems that can be created from this in adult life we see all the time, and research and statistics suggest that people become bullies in the workplace, we have people becoming sexual predators, criminal violence begins, people become more violent in everyday life. So this is a huge problem. The other piece of advice was, if someone teases you, go tell the teacher. Well, the problem here is that a child starts to grow up thinking that someone will always solve their problems for them. Someone will be always there to bail them out if there's trouble. And there is a huge problem now all around the world with young adults still reliant on their parents for support in many ways. And I think this is a huge problem that we need to tackle. And these two pieces of advice are creating these problems. So when I found this out, that's when I started to research this whole bullying idea. And I read a lot, I talked to a lot of people about it, and looked at, okay, how can this problem be solved? I started looking at techniques, how to create a system which was not violent, that children could learn quickly. And as a side note, which is an interesting point for how this whole bully-proof started, the first children who received the bully-proof training, my bully-proof training, or the children that I trialed the bully-proof on, were Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's children, because I was working with them for almost 2 months and working with their kids, working closely with their children, and I was giving them private classes 4 or 5 times a week while they were here. And I was working in the house, so I got to spend time with mum and dad also. Fantastic family. Really nice to see that these huge mega superstars were normal people and were a normal mum and dad. It was really great to see. So it was interesting that this is where the bully-proof program began. It began where I tried it with these children. So getting back to the solutions to bullying, there was really 3 solutions. Bully-proof the victims, bully-proof the bullies, and bully-proof the bystanders. This is a huge task, but this basically is what it boils down to. And if we look at bully-proof the victims, bullying occurs because there is some sort of power imbalance. The bully has a power advantage, perceived or actual, over their victims. So they're perceived as more powerful. And bullies are very adept and very good at targeting children who have low self-esteem, who have no confidence, who are a little bit different, who are excluded from the group, whatever that might be. They're very good at targeting these children. So how can we balance the power? This was a question. We need to balance the power. Excuse me. Because if we balance the power, the harassment will no longer occur, because it only can occur if there's an imbalance of power. So the easiest way is for victims to stand up to bullies. And I don't mean stand up to bullies and start fighting with them. I mean verbally stand up to bullies with confidence. Now that's easier said than done. And lots of parents were giving this great advice to children. The child comes home, Mum, Dad, you know, I'm getting bullied. You need to stand up to the bully. Great advice. It is great advice. But the problem is, I give this analogy, telling a child to stand up to a bully verbally without having the physical self-defense tools to keep themselves safe if something physical happens is like, in Australia, taking your child to the ocean and teaching them to surf before you teach them to swim. So eventually there's going to be some big problem here. So what we looked at is in the IDS, in my company's bully-proof program, we looked at creating a program that gives children non-violent self-defense tools to build this physical confidence, and they're techniques that are designed to neutralize the attack of bigger children. And it starts where the children are performing the techniques with the teachers. And you see the confidence after 1 or 2 classes starting to rise. It's amazing. Even though we're falling down and we're getting thrown around for these children, you see that they start to think, wow, you know, I can throw my teacher on the ground, you know, I can do anything. They're secretly learning principles and techniques while we play these strange bully-proof games, and these principles quickly develop into realistic techniques that they can use. So what we see is the children start to develop this physical confidence within themselves, and then that's when they start to be able to assert themselves verbally in a bullying situation. And it's clear with all humans, men, women, children, that if someone is confident in their physical ability to protect themselves, they carry themselves differently around in the world. So they become more confident, and it's at a body language level. So it's non-verbal signals that they're starting to send to the bullies. And of course, bullies are looking for easy targets. They don't want hard targets. That's not what they're looking for. So that's how we're trying to bully-proof the victims, by giving the physical self-defense, confidence, to bring out this verbal confidence. And we conduct lots of role-playing. We have different scenarios from the child's time at school, when they're in the classroom, when they're out in the playground, and we conduct different role-playing where they have to use verbal tactics or they have to use physical tactics also. And I've seen huge differences in children who've come to my class, who've been victims of bullying, who've been that quiet little mouse in the corner, and the change is tremendous, and it's getting more and more. It's getting stronger and stronger, these changes in the children. So, bully-proof the victims, bully-proof the bullies. Not as easy as bully-proofing the victims, I must say. Now, bullies are not born bullies. This is certain. They learn how to be bullies somewhere along the way. If they can learn it, they can unlearn it. This is clear. And this aggressive, violent way to climb the social ladder is learned from somewhere, whether it's at home, whether by their peers, or whether it's by media. Somewhere they're learning it. And punishing the punishment side of bullying and the zero tolerance and these things that go on in schools is great to a certain extent, but it's not a solution. It's not a solution to educating the bullies, re-educating the bullies. And that's what we want to do, is re-educate the bullies in the proper use of power. Because there will always be stronger children and weaker children, but if we can re-educate them in the proper use of power, then we can start to get them to change the way that they've been taught in the past. And how that's been going on in my class is, I've had bullies come to my class. I've had a few since we've been running the program. Some you see changes after a few classes, some it's more long term, but the change still does occur. But what happens is, the child comes to the class and they see myself, my assistant instructors, and they see that we have a power advantage over everyone. The children, most teachers, most parents, because of the physical ability we have in fighting and self-defense and what we can do to protect ourselves, we have this power advantage. And what we do is we try to show that power advantage in a respectful, humble way. So we try to be a role model for the children, so they see that one of the things that we try to teach is that, okay, if you have a power advantage, it's not cool to pick on someone smaller. It's not cool to make fun of someone because you're better than them. We teach them in class that what's cool is if you can help that person to get better, to learn from you. And whether it be in class, helping the child do the technique a little bit better, giving information, hey, no, you should be doing that, you should be doing this, try this, this will help you. And we see now that the bullies are starting to help smaller, weaker children who probably in the playground they would bully, but now in our class, in our bully-proof class, they're starting to work with and starting to help. So it's a long process, but this is how we're trying to re-educate bullies, and that's with being role models that, hey, look, I'm a pretty strong guy, and I've had lots of fights, and I know how to take care of myself, but I don't abuse that power and that position that I'm in. And it's working, but it is a long process. The other thing that I want to mention, the third point, bully-proof the bystanders. Basically, that means bully-proof the school, if you bully-proof the bystanders. Now, bystanders are the key to putting a stop to bullying. If we can get bystanders to unite and move in when they see bullying occurring, we can start to put a stop to this. The problem, or it's not the problem, the difficulty is, how do you make the reward of intervention far outweigh the risk of intervention? Because I'm sure parents and teachers as well have done the same thing. I've spent time with kids and asked them, okay, if you see someone bullying that person, would you feel good about it? No, it would make you feel terrible. Okay, would you go in and help? No. Why? Why wouldn't you help? Because I don't want the bully to start teasing me. So the toughest part that we have is, how can we get the bystanders to stick together and have that pack mentality and overcome this problem. Now, so far, my focus has been on the bully and the victim. And what I plan to do next year is to start focusing on this aspect, which is a huge aspect of solving the problem, and that's the bystanders. And what I plan to do is introduce seminars into schools and discuss this problem, but do it so I develop a connection with the children and become some sort of role model for the children, and do that by discussing what happened with me as a child at school, the bullying that I experienced, how it made me feel, how I was able to help myself, the help that I had from supportive people around me, and give them an insight into, okay, bullying can occur to me, but but you can come out stronger on the other side. So one aspect is to try and develop this connection with children and to show them the right way to behave. And the other aspect is to develop a seminar where children can get involved in role playing. Because not all children like physical self-defense. If every child could come to my bully-proof program, that would be the easiest. But of course, not everyone's interested in sport, whatever. So to do it this way, I can gain access to all of the children. And if I can do that, then I can start to give them advice on what they should do. Because if we can get children to unite and make a stand, then it's going to put a stop to this whole bullying issue. We had one talk in the Britannica International School with the kids, and I think it was very successful. So the idea next year is to start spreading this out into the other schools, and hopefully we can somehow lessen this problem of bullying that goes on. And unfortunately, we need to not be ignorant about this problem, because bullying does exist in every single school. Every single school that you go to, some form of bullying exists. And if we can slowly start to educate everyone on this issue, we can start to put a stop to it. Look, I could talk about this for some time, Peter, but I should stop.
Thank you very much.
We have two programs that are available to outside children. Happy Kids Kindergarten we have for the small 4 to 6 years old. You don't have to attend Happy Kids to come to the bully-proof program, so if your child's at another school, they can come along. And Britannica we have for 7 to 11 years old, so you can come along to those classes as well. I will leave information with Peter about the program, and also I'll leave some cards as well. I need to shoot off soon, so if anyone wants to speak with me, please grab me before I leave, or I'll leave the information and you can call me, email me, or through Peter, whatever it might be. Okay, thanks guys.
Any questions before we move on? Any questions to Rob?
Yeah.
Yes.
How long have you spent in Kenya total?
I was first time last year for 2 months, and I'm going back now for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah, short time. But it's become an annual project, so yeah.
Great.
Okay, thanks, Rob.